When Foolio's killers were sentenced, there were widespread reactions across the hip-hop community. Yungeen Ace made a public statement about the case, and other artists and figures also commented, reflecting the significance of the event. The sentencing drew attention due to Foolio's influence in the music scene and ongoing tensions in Jacksonville's rap and street circles.
Best friends.
No, y'all weren't best friends.
I like man. Bro.
Nah, y'all weren't best friends. Come on now.
After the sentencing of Foolio's killers, various rappers reacted publicly, with notable attention on Yungeen Ace due to his long-standing rivalry with Foolio. Speculation arose when Ace reportedly dropped a track shortly after Foolio's death, with lyrics some interpreted as referencing the incident. However, by July 22, 2024, Ace publicly stated he had told Foolio he loved him and encouraged him to stay out of trouble. The shift in tone led to broader discussions within the hip-hop community.
Yeah, crying and shit like, damn. It's out here. Shit crazy.
During an interview with DJ Academics, Yungeen Ace stated that he cried upon hearing of Foolio's death. He said he was in bed when he received the news and shed multiple tears. Despite their well-documented feud, Ace acknowledged that there was still a level of real emotion involved.
Best friends.
No, y'all weren't best friends.
I like twin, bro.
Nah, y'all weren't best friends. Come on now.
When pressed further, Ace made a stunning revelation. He and Foolio were best friends at one point. While the interviewer challenged this claim, the raw emotion in Ace's voice hinted at a deeper connection than the public ever knew. The complexity of their relationship became even more apparent when Ace revealed that their families were tied together, with his younger brother and Foolio's relatives being cousins. But the weight of the situation didn't end there. When arrests were made and it was revealed that some of the suspects were affiliated with ATK, the gang linked to Ace, he quickly took to Instagram, clearly aware of the legal and personal storm that was brewing around him. When you approach me, be ready to die or go to jail. That's my mentality. This post garnered over 1.4 million views and sparked intense speculation about whether Ace might face legal consequences himself. When directly confronted about allegations that he was involved in Foolio's murder, Ace's response was adamant and emotional. He denied any involvement, emphasizing that he was focused on his music career and his family, not on orchestrating violence. His defensiveness suggested the weight of the accusations, but also his determination to distance himself from the actual crime.
Some people feel like you were behind that.
I'm sure, but people feel like I'm behind lots, but I'm not. I'm not behind. I'm working. I'm grinding every day. I'm grinding. I got a family. I'm working. I'm grinding. I'm trying to be big.
Perhaps most revealing was Ace's reflection on the nature of their conflict. He suggested that much of their beef was driven by music and business rather than genuine hatred, stating that people think me and him was like really into it, but we weren't really into it. This perspective reframes their entire feud as potentially more performative than personal, a tragic misunderstanding that escalated beyond anyone's control. The arrest of his associates clearly shook Ace, and who found himself in the uncomfortable position of being linked to a murder case through his gang affiliations while maintaining his innocence. His complex reaction, initial controversy followed by genuine grief, then defiant defense, revealed a young man grappling with the consequences of a world where loyalty, territory, and reputation can quickly turn deadly. But while Ace was showing unexpected vulnerability, another voice was about to drop some of the harshest commentary the culture had ever heard. Boosie, when Boosie Badazz, the veteran Louisiana rapper whose own life has been marked by legal troubles, violence, and survival, spoke about Foolio's death. His words carried the weight of someone who had navigated similar treacherous waters and lived to tell about it. His reaction wasn't just commentary, it was a masterclass in understanding the deadly dynamics of hip-hop feuds and the strategic thinking required for survival in that world. Boosie's most memorable comment about Foolio's death became the title of the Vlad TV interview. When you're at war, you have to protect the big dog. This phrase encapsulated everything Boosie understood about the hierarchical nature of street conflicts and the strategic importance of keeping key figures alive.
Well, you know, that's just how that go, you know. It's back to back to back to back to back. That's just how that go. You know, you just gotta try to protect your big dog. Cause you know, they take the big dog, they cut the head off the roost. You know what I'm saying? So That's what they gotta always try to protect your big dog, man.
Boosie's analysis was both tactical and deeply personal. He understood that in any conflict, removing the leader, the big dog, was the most effective way to destabilize an entire organization. His words carried the wisdom of someone who had seen this pattern play out repeatedly in the streets and in the music industry. What made Boosie's reaction particularly poignant was his personal connection to Foolio. He described Foolio as a good dude, respectful and considerate during their interactions. This personal touch added weight to his analysis. This wasn't just theoretical for Boosie. He had lost someone he actually knew and respected. Sad man. Rest in peace, Boosie said, and the grief in his voice was genuine. He spoke about how they had planned to do a second official interview, but Foolio couldn't make it and had called to apologize, a detail that highlighted the young rapper's humility and professionalism. Boosie emphasized that Foolio was real humble, real polite, none of that raw stuff, painting a picture of someone far more complex than his public persona suggested. Boosie's strategic mind was evident when he discussed the circumstances of Foolio's death. He highlighted how dangerous it was for Foolio to publicly announce his birthday party on Instagram, saying things like, "Yo, DM me for the address." Given Foolio's known conflicts, Boosie viewed such public announcements as practically inviting enemies to strike.
After our first interview, he ended up getting shot, like I think in the foot or something. And you know, he was having this birthday party and he was like on Instagram announcing the party, like, yo, DM me for the address. You don't know who the hell you're DMing the address to when you're announcing publicly. Like, the way that came together really just kind of messed me up, because you would think that he would just be way more careful and way more paranoid, especially in Florida.
The veteran rapper's frustration was palpable as he discussed Foolio's lack of security awareness. Having survived his own share of assassination attempts and legal battles, Boosie understood the paranoia and strategic thinking it takes to stay alive when you're surrounded by enemies. To someone with Boosie's experience, Foolio's public announcement of his location felt reckless, almost suicidal. Boosie also addressed the immediate aftermath of Foolio's death, noting how Yungeen Ace dropped a diss track just hours later, and then followed it up with another one days after. His observation wasn't judgmental, it was analytical. He understood that this was part of a toxic cycle. Diss tracks, retaliation, and more loss. The back-to-back nature of these conflicts was something he had seen play out time and again, but perhaps most telling was Boosie's reflection on what could have been. He shared that during his first interview with Foolio, he had suggested that Foolio and Yungeen Ace try to squash their beef. Both were young, talented, and had so much ahead of them. Boosie recalled that Foolio had even agreed, saying they could probably work it out eventually. That made Foolio's death all the more heartbreaking in Boosie's eyes. Boosie's reaction wasn't just about strategy. It was the voice of someone who had survived long enough to gain perspective. His emphasis on protecting the big dog wasn't just tactical advice. It was a warning, a plea for young artists to recognize the stakes in the deadly chess game they were playing. His grief for Foolio was real. His commentary revealed not just street wisdom, but a deep emotional weight. As he reflected on cycles of violence, poor guidance, and how quickly the streets can erase potential. While Boosie initially focused on strategy, his later interviews showed a deeper message: accountability, broken homes, poor mentorship, and the failure of a culture to protect its own. His relationship with Foolio had been built on mutual respect. Despite Foolio's public persona, Boosie described every conversation they shared as humble and professional. Foolio never brought the drama to him. That made the loss feel even more personal. For Boosie, this wasn't just another casualty of street beef. It was a young life that didn't need to end this way.
I understand that all this happened before. I understand, but both of y'all still young. You have a future ahead of you.
One of the most striking aspects of Boosie's extended reaction was his emphasis on how preventable Foolio's death truly was. During their first interview, Boosie had actually tried to play mediator between Foolio and Yungeen Ace, encouraging them to put their beef behind them. He reminded them that they were both young, talented, and had promising futures. Surprisingly, Foolio had been receptive. "It'll probably happen sooner or later," he had said, even adding, "You never know what God got planned." That near miss at reconciliation made Foolio's murder even more tragic in Boosie's eyes. There was proof, clear, on-the-record proof, that peace was possible. These weren't two young men completely lost to the streets. There was still some hope left in them. The fact that they couldn't bridge that gap wasn't just their failure. It was a failure of the culture, the environment, and the system that surrounded them. Boosie's analysis of Foolio's security failures was especially pointed. He couldn't understand how someone who had already survived multiple shootings could be so careless. The public birthday party announcement, the decision to invite strangers via Instagram, the lack of security, the choice to stay in Florida even though there were clear threats against him. To Boosie, those were fatal mistakes. Mistakes that someone with his experience would never make. To a man who had been through it all, ambushes, arrests, and real-life street wars, Foolio's decisions seemed reckless, almost like a death wish. And that's what made Boosie's grief hit harder. He wasn't just mourning Foolio, he was mourning all the lost young stars who never got the chance to grow up, who never got to escape the cycle.
I couldn't believe it, man. 26. I didn't think he was that young.
The age factor hit Boosie especially hard. At just 26 years old, Foolio was still, in Boosie's eyes, a kid, young enough to change, to grow, and to leave the streets behind. That wasted potential was what seemed to hurt Boosie the most. This wasn't a hardened veteran who had lived a long life in the streets. This was someone who barely had the chance to become who he might have been. Boosie's reflection wasn't just personal, it was generational. He saw in Foolio all the young artists he's watched rise and fall too many times before. Foolio had charisma, talent, and ambition. But in a world where violence and clout often go hand in hand, the streets don't always let potential flourish. Boosie also zoomed out to examine the ripple effect Foolio's death would have on the Jacksonville scene. He knew this wasn't the end of the cycle. In fact, he feared it was only the beginning of something worse. His comments about Yungeen Ace dropping diss tracks immediately after Foolio's murders weren't laced with criticism, but with the tired, pained recognition of someone who had seen it all before. He wasn't surprised. He was disappointed. The cycle, as Boosie saw it, was becoming all too familiar. An artist dies, tributes and diss tracks flood the internet, and retaliation follows, sometimes in the booth, other times in real life. The culture didn't mourn for long, the streets didn't allow time to heal, and in that relentless loop, another young life is always waiting to be lost.
Then Yungeen Ace drops a diss track a couple hours later, and then dropped another diss track a couple days later.
The reaction on social media was immediate and intense. An X post by @NoJumper noted the wave of backlash, while Daily Loud took a more direct stance, posting screenshots from the video with the caption, "This is why the violence never ends." Even fans who had followed the Foolio verses Spinabenz beef for years were taken aback. The comments flooded in. Some called the song and video disgusting, inhuman, and a new low for the culture. Others warned that Spinabenz might have crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, both artistically and streetwise. What made Spinabenz's response particularly disturbing was its calculated nature. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment Instagram story or a vague lyric in a freestyle. It was a full-scale production. He turned Foolio's murder into a branding opportunity. The track, Foolio Dead, released just days after the killing, made no attempt to disguise its meaning. With lyrics like "Foolio dead for real, it's not a joke," Spinabenz and Wupaweta Chopa doubled down on the message. The music video only added fuel to the fire. Shot in locations eerily reminiscent of areas associated with Foolio, the visuals seemed designed to deliver a final insult, one that would live online forever. And while YouTube eventually demonetized the video, it had already gone viral. Major hip-hop pages, even those that normally promote drill content, refused to repost it. Critics argued that this was beyond diss culture. It was digital grave dancing. For many, Spinabenz's actions weren't just disrespectful, they were dangerous. It raised a broader question: how far can this cycle of provocation and retaliation go before it turns into something unrecoverable? Because in Jacksonville, where Foolio's name carried both fear and respect, celebrating his death so publicly wasn't just about clout. It could be seen as a declaration of war. Spin celebrates Foolio getting shot and killed while celebrating his 26th birthday in Tampa. These posts garnered hundreds of thousands of views. One particularly telling Reddit comment captured the frustration many felt. This isn't rap beef anymore, this is mental illness on display. Celebrating someone's murder like it's a mixtape drop? This is why no one respects the Jacksonville scene anymore. This kind of raw feedback showed how even hardcore fans of the drill and trap subgenres were drawing a line. While the culture has long tolerated diss tracks, subliminals, and even some real-life references, the outright gloating over a rival's death, especially one who had just been buried, felt like a grotesque milestone. Critics also pointed to how Spinabenz's moves might backfire. Industry insiders suggested that major labels, already wary of signing artists from violent scenes, could view this as a red flag. Some fans warned that Spinabenz might be setting himself up for retaliation, while others questioned whether the clout was worth the consequences. Even outside hip-hop circles, the controversy sparked discussions about the role of streaming platforms, YouTube algorithms, and social media in amplifying toxic behavior. How does a video openly mocking a murder stay online long enough to rack up millions of views? And what responsibility, if any, do platforms have in stopping this cycle? Spinabenz, for his part, remained unapologetic. On Instagram, live days later, he laughed off the backlash, saying, "Y'all soft. This street ain't no RIP for the ops." This response only intensified the backlash and made one thing clear. For some, the line between rap and reality had completely disappeared. What hurts so bad is Foolio response would have been top tier now. "Look what we left with trash, how you take somebody who can rap and leave us with this straight out the trash music." This comment highlighted not just the disrespect to Foolio's memory, but the artistic vacuum his death had created. What made Spinabenz's reaction even more controversial was the context of Jacksonville's gang wars. The murder case involved 5 suspects linked to gang rivalries between Foolio's 6 Block and ATK/1200 gangs, with Spinabenz being associated with the ATK side. The celebration wasn't just about a personal rivalry, it was a public victory lap in what law enforcement had characterized as an ongoing gang war. Historical Reddit discussions from March 2022 showed that this type of reaction had been anticipated, with users predicting they throwing parties if someone big from either side dropped. This prophecy proved accurate, but the reality was still shocking when it actually occurred. The legal implications of Spinabenz's celebration also raised serious questions, with prosecutors seeking the death penalty for some of the suspects and evidence showing the killers tracked Foolio from Jacksonville to Tampa. Spinabenz's immediate and detailed celebration raised suspicions about whether he had advanced knowledge of the planned attack.